Welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I'm your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West. I have with me special guest today, State Representative Mark Matthiesen. Mark, what district are you from?
I am from District 107, representing the beautiful part of southern O'Fallon as well as eastern Garden Prairie.
Mark is my northern neighbor there, so we share a little bit of the same boundary lines. Let's talk a little bit about your district, some special things in your district.
You know, I have such a nice, tight neighborhood district, just great, safe communities, upper middle class homes. It's such a wonderful place to live. I moved over from St. Louis County several years ago and just really found a nice community to be part of, both with my neighbors and well as the Fort Zumwalt School District that my son thoroughly enjoys being a part of.
So, Mark, is Fort Zumwalt the only school district in your...
Actually, I happen to be the epicenter where the Wentzville School District, Fort Zumwalt School District, and Fort Zumwalt all come together at one point right in the middle of my district.
Aren't you lucky?
I am, yes.
So, it's interesting that you say that because we're going to talk today about property taxes, personal property taxes, and some issues that we're dealing on in the House. So I would say this show is probably going to be about taxation from the majority of it. But the reason I brought that up is because having the 3 school districts in your district really opens your eyes to how our taxes are collected, how they're paid out, what they're going for, the struggles in some of the school districts that they're having economically and financially, and also how they reach out to the people and try to ask or collect more taxes or more money. So we'll talk about all that today.
I look forward to it.
So, as you know, most of my district, I think pretty much all of my district represents the Francis Howell School District. And while one of the better school districts in the state, it does not come without its problems as well. We've seen over the last few months the struggles that they've had with maintaining and keeping leadership. In the past few years, we've had some issues with some audits that we've had.
Ooh,
and the
yes.
audits that have come back have not been very nice to the district. So, that all boils down to leadership, but leadership is chosen by the constituents.
In a roundabout way, the school board chooses your next superintendent. The voters elect your school board. So if you want confidence that your superintendent is going to reflect your personal views, you need to remember to vote in April when those school board members are up for election, because they are key to making that final decision.
So we've had a lot of discussion this year. We're about about a third, probably just a little over a third way into our session.
It's going by quickly.
Yeah, I know, right? And one of the big topics, of course, has been taxation. But another one of the big topics has been, we had this debate on the floor, was about moving some of the election dates to better, you and I are on the same page on this, to better bring in more of the voting block at a time when most voters are out to actually vote on other things besides a school district or bond issue.
Right. You know, this is a good time to remind everybody how important local elections are. And most of those elections take place the first Tuesday of April. You need to mark your calendar so you can get out and vote on that first Tuesday of April. The decisions made by your local leaders have just as much or even more of an impact on your daily lives as someone like us here at the state or even your federal officials. So it's really kind of disappointing. While St. Charles County is one of the more active voting counties throughout the entire state, we're still only averaging a 14% turnout in our April elections. So we've been trying to do things like ensure that if a taxation measure, if it's going to cost everyone more money, we need to get more participation in the votes. We try to move it to November, where we're averaging 60 to 80% turnout in St. Charles County. Because right now, if 7.1% of the voters of St. Charles County vote yes on a tax increase, that raises taxes on 100% of our population.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and it's interesting. You and I, of course, the numbers are real, so we have the same numbers. So in last election, we had upward of 67%,
yes,
or close there too. But we had a presidential election, we had statewide elections, we had elections that a lot of people came out to vote on. However, just a few mere short months later, 3 months later, 4 months later, in April, we had school board elections where sub 14% showed up to vote. Now, what that means is we had substantially less voters in St. Charles County come out to vote for the leaderships of their schools.
Correct.
We lost some really good people who were doing, and I'm going to talk about Francis Howell, which is my school district. We lost a really good person. I'm not even going to say what party they're with, but he was really, really good in paying attention to what was going on within the school district. His policies were spot on. He was a true thinker, but because a political group came out on voter day only of that 14%, and it's backed by some unions or the teachers unions like that, then that vote is pushed by a certain segment, therefore pushing out the incumbent, who was really good for the school district. And then there shortly after, they end up firing the superintendent, who walked away with over $200,000 of the taxpayers' money without even serving one day on the board or as superintendent.
Right.
So these kinds of things are very important, especially to voters for local issues, school boards, and, as you were talking, to tax increases.
Absolutely.
So these tax increases come out. They put them on the April ballot, knowing that only people that are interested in that subject will show up to vote, and therefore passing it. And that is how our taxes on our bond issues, that's how all that stuff gets increased. Our water districts, our school districts, and special taxation is all done in that April ballot, and that's how that gets done. So it's very important that we prioritize the need to get out and vote.
And I've always advocated for simply eliminating that April election altogether. Not only will it bring all of the elections into the time period that people are, I guess, in a better habit of showing up to vote in November than they are in April, but it would certainly save a lot of taxpayer dollars by funding one less election every year.
So let's touch on that a little bit. Like I said, we had such an the last major election we had was very exhausting.
Yes, it was.
It was presidential. There was a lot going on. People were very fatigued listening on the radio and the TV. And once that's done, people take a breath. Whether you won or lost, people take a breath and they step back. Well, who in their right mind really wants to get back into the mindset of having to vote and go vote again and have another election, specifically on something that maybe some people just aren't as interested in?
And I don't know if it's people are less interested in the school board candidates. It is very costly to get your message out. And after people have spent all that time emotionally, financially invested in those state and national elections, they're not willing to put the resources into a school board race like they would be a more, nationally publicized race. So a lot of good people, while they may work very hard, a lot of boots on the ground, door knocking, trying to meet people face to face, that takes a lot of time. You're in the middle of winter. You're freezing cold when you're doing it. So all the respect in the world for those candidates who are actually out there trying to meet their candidates in the freezing cold weather. But it's hard to connect with people in such a short time frame on very limited financial resources.
Yeah, which is going to pull us into a little bit about why I wanted to have you in here today. First of all, I like bringing in all the St. Charles County reps. I think we all have our own section of the county to come and talk about. But you and I are really close on this issue, and that is taxation within our county and our state.
If you look at the budgets of every municipality in St. Charles County, if you look at the budgets in most of the school districts in St. Charles County, especially the big three, Wentzville, Fort Zumwalt, and Francis Howell, you would be amazed how much bigger their budgets are today than they even were 8 years ago. Nearly triple the amount of money is being spent now as it was very recently spent. And the school district, the municipalities, no government entity at all can spend one dime that didn't first come from a person who went to work to earn that money. So when those budgets are bloated and get out of hand to the point where many of our political subdivisions are just trying to be creative and find new ways to spend money simply because they have it, and they're always trying to spend down to zero every year, that's when it's time to step back, look at their funding, and find out if we can't return more money to the people of St. Charles County.
So let's talk about this a little bit. As a mayor, somebody who's been there, local politics, so municipal politics is completely different than state politics. Typically, at a local level, your mayors, your city councils, your townships, things like that, they're looking for ways to, what they want to say, better the lives of their constituents. So they use the ruse of that, along with the fact that every year they're getting more and more and more of your tax dollars.
Right.
And they feel the need to spend more and more and more of those tax dollars. Like you said, they want to spend down to zero, so next year they can come back to you and say, oh, well, we spent everything, we have zero, but we want to do this year, so we need to find another way to tax our citizens.
Right. And most of the people that I talk to in my neighborhood and in my community, they don't think it's the role of government for the government to try to make their lives better. What most people think their lives would be better is if the government took less from them so they could focus on making their own lives better.
So, there's no secret. I'm a small businessman in St. Charles County, and the trials that I have, the tribulations you have of being a small business, is part of the risk that we take as small business.
Absolutely.
And we are constantly burdened by overregulation, and what I would say is overtaxation, and what we get back for that is very minimal.
Our municipalities, in my ever so humble opinion, they should be focused on public safety, police, keeping our roads safe, our roads resurfaced. And one thing about St. Charles County, the big, huge growth boom took place about 25, 26 years ago when the Page extension was completed and came out further. You saw more and more neighborhoods pop up really within just a short time frame. Every bit of that pavement that was laid 25 years ago is now starting to crumble. That's where we need to be putting our resources.
A lot of that was laid quickly.
Yes.
And on unstable ground, and then we get the breakage because of now land is settled. And I mean, I'm not a road engineer, but we are seeing the issues. Not only in the neighborhoods, but in some of the major streets.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say this: St. Charles County has done a really good job of taxing us because we have our own road tax.
Yes.
But do you know why we have that?
The voters want good roads, so
Right.
they approved it. But are we sure that the county has been accountable on how every dollar of that's been spent?
So I'm going to say, look, I am not going to dig in on our county. I think our
Yes.
county does a pretty good job.
I think
but
so.
What we end up spending a lot of that money on is the state. The state. So we have what's called matching funds.
We do.
If we want to have a state road built or something built that the state would normally take care of, typically if we come in with matching funds, the state will build it a little faster.
Absolutely.
Okay? Sort of what we're dealing with on Highway N right now.
Right.
But the problem with that is that we already pay our taxes through the state. We should be doing that.
Yes.
But now we're saying the state can't keep up with our growth. The state can't keep up with how we would like our roads to be. We're going to pay extra. But we're going to go one even deeper now. Let's talk about Highway N out in the Lake St. Louis area. That is so far behind development. The accidents, the crowded roadways, it's horrible out there. And St. Charles County and O'Fallon have allowed more development to happen out there. So now it's even going to be worse. So what they've done is not only are we paying an additional tax, but they're coming back to the cities and asking for more. So we got to head off to break here. We're going to pick this exactly right up where we're going to leave off, because this is something to talk about.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back in a few. Enjoy your break. Good afternoon and welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I'm your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West. I have with me today Missouri State Representative Mark Matthiesen. We're both from St. Charles County, of course. Mark's my northern neighbor, and I proudly represent southern St. Charles County, pretty much everything south of the 4070 corridor, a little bit of Weldon Spring, and a little bit of Cottleville. Mark, when we went off to break, we were talking about road taxation and what's going on in Highway N. So I want to bring that right back up since it's fresh in the minds of what we were talking about.
You know, it is important to widen, to do better with Highway N. Of course, that's also a self-inflicted scenario, because the municipalities are wanting to expand. They're wanting to bring in more residents. St. Charles County just voted on a brand new neighborhood out that direction.
Well,
that is going to bring in so much more traffic.
They did that for the fear of another or a municipality incorporating that in and doing it anyway. So St. Charles County said, well, we'll just go ahead and do it. The problem is that corridor is already overtaxed, not only with traffic, but water, sewer, and all of the above. Our school districts out there are taxed. But I want to go back to the road thing for a minute, and that was the county executive, and rightfully so, has come out to the municipalities, all the municipalities in St. Charles County, and said, yeah, we need you all to divvy up so that we can actually put in even more money towards the redevelopment of Highway N so that we can get it done, because we have overtaxed the system. Now, here we are. We've already paying a road tax, not private, but a public road tax that's funded other than the state.
And remind me, that half-cent sales tax, is that generating $20 or $40 million a year?
It's quite a bit. I believe it's $40 million.
$40 million, yes.
Look, I'll be honest with you that I believe it's $40 million. It may or may not be, but roughly so. And we are now going back to the municipalities and asking for more money. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I mean, like I said, rightfully so, because I think Steve, the county executive, Elman, has a priority out there, because it's really, really, really congested. That's out in my neck of the woods, right?
Absolutely.
But the other problem with that is we're going to use taxpayer dollars, and more taxpayer dollars now, to develop an area where the people themselves, the people that live out there, are saying, well, let's slow down a little bit. Even the municipalities that have expanded out into those areas, even the people out there are saying, let's slow down just a little bit. But the problem is the elected officials have decided, now this is what we want to do. We want to reach that certain level of population so that we can go higher up on the list with the state. We can get higher subsidies from the federal government. There's a whole myriad of things that come with that. But I believe they're just disregarding the people of the area.
There's no doubt about that. As very recently, the city of O'Fallon has annexed another 6 parcels of land into the municipality. I believe 2 of them west of Lake St. Louis. Yeah. And to me, that growth doesn't make sense for proper management. A municipality should be a tight-knit group. And when, you're expanding, if you look at the map of O'Fallon, all right, don't even bother looking at my district where it's a puzzle piece where O'Fallon interlocks neighborhood by neighborhood with Darden Prairie. Right. It's almost to the extent there should be a land swap just to ensure we really have contiguous municipalities now. And honestly, if I'm in the neighborhoods and I'm trying to figure out if I'm in Darden Prairie or O'Fallon, I just look at the color of the trash cans because the gray trash cans are O'Fallon, the blue ones are Darden Prairie, and there's just pretty much that's the only way to tell what town you're in at that point. But when one municipality is reaching further south, further north, further west, I'm surprised that they missed a parcel of land. Cottleville just was able to annex some land that comes all the way over and touches Highway K.
Really?
I was shocked. I now have Cottleville in my district.
Yeah, well, good.
So, it's great to represent even more area.
So let's talk about the taxation a little bit, because this is kind of what we were getting at is, so if you bring in more constituents into your city, say you annex into your city, you now get to enjoy the taxation gathered from all those constituents.
Every house that's built represents another block of property tax. More people are spending money. That's more sales tax.
So then how does the government turn around and say, well, we're growing so fast we don't have enough money. You're getting the new constituents in. So this is the farce that taxation in a growing county, this is how they just confuse the people, and people are like, we trust you, government, we'll give you what you need, or we'll vote for what you need, because we don't want to end up like St. Louis City, or we don't want to end up in an area that's underfunded.
Yes. So to give an example of how lopsided and how the numbers don't make sense to me, not that long ago, another 1,000 homes were built in the Wentzville School District, just north of Highway 70. All right. Each house brought in another $3,000 of property tax every year into the school district. That's another $3 million a year that the school district received. Now, not every house in this neighborhood is going to have kids. Right. All right. I understand we have new students moving in, and honestly, Wentzville has a lot of overcrowding and some additional buildings. So right away, we have another bond issue because of another claim of a need of another school building. Yet, the bond issue on top of the operating revenue not only is covering the cost of a building, but is enabling new creative ways on spending money that is above and beyond the cost of operating that one building. And we need to retire some of these. The bond issues should be not as long-term and as expansive as they are. And don't even get me started on the no tax increase bond issues that keep coming out, because there is zero chance in the real world that a school district or any entity needs to the dollar exactly the same thing now that they asked for 5 years ago. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So let's segue into personal property tax.
Ooh, yes.
Because I know this is an issue that I have. It's an issue you have. There's been movements in the past to try to eliminate this tax from our coffers, or I guess from the way we collect taxes in the state of Missouri. There's just a lot of bad things about it. But we get the biggest pushback we get are from like the school districts.
Of course.
Library districts, the fire districts. I think those are the three biggest ones. And then we can... I know some areas have like 17 people that enjoy getting personal property tax.
Right. So, let's break down the issue a little further. Number one, in St. Charles County, most of the political subdivisions, the tax spenders who rely solely on property tax, personal property tax is representing about 9% of their total revenue. By reducing that over time, because the value of the vehicles are growing faster than normal CPI, so the taxation is growing faster than what even real property has been growing on the personal property tax line. And by properly balancing a reduction of personal property tax with the increased value of the new vehicles, there's a complex formula that is always ensuring that the taxes received on new or used vehicles that you purchase in its first year always increases the yearly take of property tax overall. And it is guaranteeing all of these political subdivisions just exponentially high growth of tax revenue, simply because about every 5 to 6 years, most families go replace a vehicle. And the system, the design of the allowed taxation growth was never meant to be in a way that that it's growing faster than people's salaries are growing. The way our system is designed to ensure that the tax spenders get all of their money plus their bonus. When the families of St. Charles County, the families of mine in your districts, we're not guaranteed a pay raise at all. We're certainly not guaranteed a pay raise that it matches or even exceeds CPI the way the Consumer Price Index, the same way that our government entities are guaranteed their pay raises every year.
So let's talk. You have some bills out there this year. Let's talk about, you have a personal property tax bill, right?
I have a great personal property tax bill. And what this does is it phases down incrementally the percentage of the assessed value of our motor vehicles, as well as business equipment. So people will benefit, our businesses will benefit, and it's going to essentially cut your personal property taxes in half. And what this does is enable us to save money on that end, while also ensuring that the financial impact for the tax spenders is very predictable and reliable. So people are still going to be able to meet the necessary expenses that they have, while ensuring the people of Missouri are not overtaxed.
So, as I stated when we started in on personal property tax, I have issues with the tax itself. I believe it's double taxation to begin with.
100%.
With real property, you do not pay a sales tax when you purchase it.
Correct.
But you're assessed a tax based upon assessed values that your assessor comes out and assesses. And that typically is how you fund the things that you want locally within your county.
Absolutely.
Okay?
And the reality is the amount that most areas of Missouri is paying, you will buy your house from the government a second time every 57 years.
Yeah. So the difference with personal property tax is you buy something and you pay sales tax on it. So you've already paid your tax to own that item.
Exactly.
Now you're being told you have to, you'll give us a little story on this, but now you're being told that in order to keep that property, which you've already paid a tax for, and it's yours, now you're being told to keep that or to use it, you have to pay a personal property tax, which let's real quickly slide in how this works. So currently we're only paying 33 what is it?
The taxable value of your vehicle
is 33%?
Yeah, 33.33% of the trade-in value of the vehicle based on whichever book they're using this year.
So your assessor has to go out
yes,
and pull down the value for your car. then look at that value and say, okay, I'm going to tax you at 33.33% of the value, the assessed value of that car. How they find that, I mean, it's been changed several times. And during COVID, it was horrendous what they did to the people during COVID. But look at it this way: we just went out and bought a new car, $50,000, right?
Yes.
You know, for that same car 10 years ago was $25,000.
Right.
So the value has doubled, and of
Correct.
course, my personal property tax value has doubled as well.
Exactly.
And there's no way out of this mess. So so there's an assessed value, and then you pay a tax on that assessed value. There's actually two parts of this formula. So what we're trying to do, I have a similar bill as yours, so we're not. This isn't about me right now, but what we're trying to do is lower the assessed values to say, okay, the tax is still the same, what the people voted on,
Right.
that they wanted to pay per assessed
The
value.
levy rate stays the same.
The levy rate stays the same, but we're just saying, hey, we're going to assess your car at a lower rate. Personally, I want to do away
Right.
with it. But we're going to assess your car at a lower rate. Therefore, your tax liability, what you owe, is less. And I think that's where we're trying to get at.
Yeah, our goal is the same. One thing.
Let's before we get into something else, we're going to have to head off to a break here.
Absolutely.
Folks, go out and enjoy yourselves. We'll be back in a little bit, talk a little bit more about taxation, and specifically with St. Charles County. We'll be back in a few. Good afternoon, and welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I'm your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West. I have with me today Missouri State Representative Mark Matthiesen, and we've been talking a little bit about taxation, specifically within St. Charles County, but it applies to the state as well. Mark's going to give us a little bit of history on personal property tax, where it came from and how it came to be, and something y'all may not even know about. So, Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much. So when I started working on trying to reduce the personal property tax, I thought it was important to learn the history of personal property tax in the state of Missouri, because so many people don't even know where it came from. Now, my history shows the first personal property tax in the entire country was in Delaware in 1675 when somebody started taxing people's livestock.
Okay.
Coincidentally, that was also the first personal property tax collected in the state of Missouri, was on our livestock in 1939. So really, it's less than 100 years that taxation's been in place. But shortly after that, in 1941, under the administration of Democrat Governor Lloyd Stark, when our Constitution was last revised, a phrase was put in there that allowed for the taxation of tangible property. And at that time, the only property that was being taxed was our land, our homes, our businesses, as well as some livestock. So that revision of the Constitution was ratified under the administration of Democrat Governor Phil Donnelly. And, and that fully just implemented the political subdivision's ability to assess that property tax. And it was continuing on, just focused on real property until 1974. Now, in 1974, Democrat Senator Lawrence Lee, as well as Democrat Senator Franklin Payne, filed legislation to redefine motor vehicles as tangible property. And of course, Democrat Governor Roger Wilson signed that bill into law. So starting in 1975, vehicles were, for the first time in the state of Missouri, assessed personal property tax on a yearly basis. Now, that was 51 years ago?
I was going to say, do you remember voting for any of that?
I did not vote for that. In fact, no people in the state of Missouri ever voted to approve personal property tax. That is the one tax in our state that's never had a vote. And I hear in committee on the House floor every time I turn around that we shouldn't be lowering these taxes because the people voted for these taxes. And I finally have the receipts to prove them wrong. Personal property tax was implemented and rammed through the process by the Democrats of the state of Missouri without a vote of the people.
Well, I often say we should just put it back to the vote of the people. First of all, I believe all taxes should have a sunset, and all
Absolutely.
taxes should have to be revoted on by the people. Your government won't do this because they know what the answer will be. People will not vote for it. But, this is a great case that maybe we should just put out an HJR.
I think we should.
Put it to the vote of the people and say, shall the people of Missouri eliminate the personal property tax?
I've actually filed that HJR in past sessions. Oddly enough, could never get that referred to committee.
I wonder why that is. Huh?
I don't know. But
So let's talk a little bit. Okay, so we've got a little bit of history about personal property
Yes.
tax. We know what it funds. I'm not empathetic for the needs of the people that receive funding from this, except for one entity, and that's the Missouri Blind Pension Fund.
yeah,
Okay, but I can find another way that the Missouri people would fund that, and they would not lose any money, and actually would probably get them a few more cents. But other than that, I'm not empathetic because it's just another way to pull the wool over the people's eyes.
it is.
But let's talk about. I know you want to talk here, but let's talk about this. And this, folks, you're going to get to an area where I get really upset because the Missouri voters are just they're kept in the dark about this issue, and it's the late fees and the penalties and the interest that is charged on just personal property tax is astronomical. And when you find out that money is relied on, the government relies on 15% to 20% of the people within their county are going to be delinquent on their taxes to help fund their county and to help fund, guess what?
Retirement plans.
Their pension plans.
Exactly.
Right? Now, I understand we're government. I understand we have things to fund. But if we can't fund it with the things that we put in front of the people to vote on, how many of you people voted on the fact that you want to, if you don't file a piece of paper that tells the government what to tax you on by March of every year, if you don't do that, they're going to charge you $120. And 18%, according to our assessor. Now, he doesn't collect any money, okay?
Correct.
But his office enjoys about 18% of the personal property tax accounts that they have. Every year, report late, just by attrition, report late, and he enjoys that money coming to his office. Now, I'm like, you're kidding me. 18% of all of, and there's roughly 200 personal property tax accounts.
200,000.
Or 200,000, I'm sorry,
Yes.
200,000 accounts in St. Charles County.
Right.
18% of those pay a late fee.
Exactly.
And he told me it's over $1 million, $1.2 to $1.4 million a year that is just collected on the late fee to tell the government what they should tax you on.
And supposedly in our county, that money is spent on training the employees. And I tell you, we must have the most well-trained staff in the entire world if they're getting $1 million worth of training every year.
And again, this is not to degrade those offices that we have.
Sure.
Okay, this is done by state law, okay, which is ordinances and statutes put into place, never voted on by the people. I don't think the people would vote. There needs to be a mechanism to enforce people to follow the law.
Certainly.
I understand that. But we're not even talking about late fees for paying late yet. That is just failure to report to the assessor's office what they should tax you on. That just, if anything gets my goat, that's it.
You know, I understand. There are families that make a conscious decision every December
Absolutely.
to take care of their family for the holidays and worry about that personal property tax bill in January. They know it's going to cost them another $100, $200. But when you have decisions to make for your family, sometimes you just have to make the decision that you have to make. But in most of the state, the county offices reach out to their rural representatives and they say, you cannot vote on this bill that's going to make personal property taxes more affordable for the people of Missouri. Because if everybody started paying their bill on time, their retirements would be so much smaller. And some of this extra money that they are just scraping off the table on the backs of people that are struggling to make ends meet, I don't care where that money is going. I mean, it's not an option in the state of Missouri to own a vehicle. We don't have a robust public transportation system. And most of our municipalities, our counties, we're all spread apart. You have to have a car if you want to go to work so you can earn the money, so you have the money to pay the government. You have to have a car so you can go to the store to feed your family. It's not an option in Missouri. So you shouldn't be punished just for owning the vehicle by having to pay additional taxes. And where those fines, where those penalties, that just really, it drives me crazy when I have to argue those kind of details in committee. That to me is just irresponsible of the handling of that financial aspect.
Well, I'm going to go back to, if I put it to the vote of the people of this state, I bet it would overwhelmingly, I bet about 80% of the residents in the state of Missouri would vote to do away with personal property
Absolutely.
tax.
Doesn't matter what
Hang
corner
that tax
you're
on
from.
something else.
Right.
So while we're on this issue, I want to talk about one thing, and that is the cost to administrate taxes.
Huh. Yes.
This is something that is never talked about. Oh, we need this tax. Oh, we need that tax. And, for every tax that you have, there's a cost to administrate that tax. So in St. Charles County, and the reason I talk about St. Charles County is because I've done my homework, right?
Yes.
In St. Charles County, the assessor's office charges over $1 million, probably $1.2 million, to facilitate the assessment of our personal property tax. On the collector side, now guess what? She refuses to contact me or to talk to me about this, but I have on good information that her office is roughly the same. Let's just round that out to $2.5 million.
Sounds about right.
And that's a very safe estimate, I can guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
So in St. Charles County, you are paying your government $2.5 million just to assess and collect your personal property tax. Now, without making any other changes, if we just took that tax and moved all that taxation over to a property tax, and I'm not advocating for this because I think they need to quit spending so much, but if you just took that straight over,
yes,
just some number changes, it doesn't take any more time. As a matter of fact, it'll probably take less time.
It will.
But you just move that straight over to property tax. You now have saved the people of St. Charles County $2.5 million just by collecting it in a tax that's already collected. And if you even did and put that into a sales tax, again, you would save that. So, however you want to take that tax and manipulate it to go somewhere else, I say we cut back on our spending.
Right. Number one, cut back on spending. Number two, keep in mind every half-cent sales tax collected countywide generates $40 million of revenue every year, and that only goes up with inflation. The more things cost, the more tax we're bringing in on those different tax revenue streams, which is why in the state of Missouri is a totally other topic here. There's so much discussion about eliminating the income tax and replacing it with a sales tax because we could lower the overall sales tax rate in the state and tax some of those service items that are currently not taxed, eliminate the income tax, and overall save everyone in the state of Missouri money.
All right, so we've got about 2 minutes left. Let me just tell you this.
Yes.
We talked about this earlier. If you just magically did away with personal property tax, do you know what would happen?
We would have to reduce spending by about 8%.
Well, let's talk about the positive.
Yes.
So think of Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Ah, yes.
Okay? Enterprise Rent-A-Car is a Missouri entity,
It
right?
is.
They grew up here. They made their millions here. We are proud to have Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
But why are none of their vehicles registered in the state of Missouri?
Personal property tax.
And how much sales tax could we be collecting on the purchase of those vehicles if they would register them in our state?
Well, the registration fees, the sales tax, and we're keeping. So, look, all of these rental car agencies, they license their cars elsewhere, and then they come in and use our roads, and it's being paid for by sales or by sales tax on fuel. But we're not getting any of the registration fees. We're not getting any of the sales tax fees. And if you did away with personal property, you would have airplanes being registered here. You would have
Correct.
cars being registered. Just look at all the rental cars that are out there and look at where their plates are from. They're from states that don't have personal property tax.
I challenge someone out there to take a picture of a U-Haul truck with a Missouri plate on it and send it to my X account at Mark Matmo.
Yeah. So, I mean, the numbers, by having less taxation, we will grow our numbers in this state. And that's across the board. That's income tax. That's sales tax is a use tax, so I'm all for that. But personal property tax and even property taxes too, I think we could round those out a little bit too. But
And I have another bill to do that as well, but we'll save that for another show.
look, folks, it's been great talking to you this afternoon. I have my buddy here, Representative Mark Matthiesen, and I am Representative Richard West. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Listen anytime.
It happens
Anywhere.
everywhere.
Every day continues to bring more news with the News Talk STL app.
Keep St. Louis's home for conservative talk with you wherever you go.
Download the News Talk STL app in the App Store
Or at newstalkstl.com.